In this next video from Newsweek, Ron Paul blocked from accessing Facebook page over violating community standards. Former Republican Congressman Ron Paul says he has been blocked by Facebook from managing his account over repeated violations of the social media giant's, quote, community standards, and quote, with no explanation other than repeatedly going against our community standards. Facebook has blocked me from managing my page. Never have we received notice of violating community standards over the past, and nowhere is the offending post identified, and quote, Paul wrote on Twitter Monday. I really hope that Ron Paul sues over this, because that is just crazy that they're doing, like, Ron Paul, I mean, come on, man. Can you pick a more benign person than Ron Paul? I mean, this guy is like not hurting anyone at all, dude. This guy, the only thing he's done is helped out the world. You might not agree with the reasonings as to why he thought that what he did, but it's because he's got principles. It's because it doesn't match with the principles that he holds dearly. And so even if he liked it, he'll still vote against it because it violates his principles. You know, he's like Antonin Scalia. Antonin Scalia does that. You know, a lot of people hate Antonin Scalia. They think he's like this racist guy that was just like out to do people harm, and they just like corrupt. But you got to understand the justifications as to why he voted the way he did. It's because of a concept called originalism. Back in the day, they had this concept, or they used to run the government in what was called evolutionism, where they would take the laws and then they would interpret the laws how they wanted to, and the law would evolve based upon the interpretations that people had. Antonin Scalia said, no, you got to go back and look at what the people who wrote the law intended when they wrote the law. They go back and read like the Federalist Papers or the records of the state senators who voted for a legislation, or not state senators, state legislatures who vote, how they voted, like the records of them debating the thing, and then they'll figure out what the people actually intended. And so a lot of times, now, not everything he did was originalist. Sometimes he didn't like something and he voted against it, but most of what he did was under originalism. And then people just don't understand that, and then they hate him. That's why they hate, a lot of people don't like Ron Paul. I admire the man for that. I think that if you have principles and they have a very solid logic, I respect your principles quite a bit more than all of the leftists combined. The post included a screenshot of his Facebook page, which had the message informing him of his limited functionality. Paul wrote in a second Twitter post that the only thing he put on Facebook Monday was my weekly Texas Straight Talk column, which I have published every week since 1976, with no explanation. Sorry, just read that. Here's the tweet. Kind of sounds like what I just read, but it's a little bit different. With no explanation other than, quote, repeatedly going against our community standards, end quote, Facebook has blocked me from managing my page. Never we received notice of violating the community standards in the past. Nowhere is the offending post identified. I think we already read that. Sounds like the rest of this article is fluff. Newsweek reached out, blah, blah, blah. This is just a bunch of BS that they put at the end of the article. We read most of it. It's called Fluff. Once you read enough of it, you're tired of reading it. They can't just put all of the stuff at the beginning and say, Facebook blocked Ron Paul, because then you wouldn't read the article. You would just move on. You're like, all right, I already got the news. That's all I need to hear. Moving on. They got to put in all this other stuff. This is obviously targeting people for their political affiliations. Obviously, Ron Paul never, I don't know whether or not he's got any tweets that do violate, or any posts that do violate community standards, because I haven't looked at them. But knowing Ron Paul, he probably didn't do that. I mean, he's pretty clean cut guy. He's straight talker. He's not into funny business. He's a good person. Definitely out of character. Not the right dude. But why they target him? Because he's Republican. That's why. What else we got here? I'm going to cover this one too in this one. Easier, need less videos. This next article here from Fox. Zuckerberg knocks Twitter for fact-checking Trump. Says private companies shouldn't be the arbiter of truth. Let me get this straight. So the guy that just banned the term "stop the steal" is saying that Twitter shouldn't fact check Trump because they shouldn't be the arbiter of truth. Okay. We are in crazy land. I must be going insane. I must have lost my faculties because none of this makes sense anymore. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg has called out Twitter for attaching a fact check to a tweet from President Trump telling Fox News' Dana Perino that privately owned digital platforms should not act as the arbiter of truth. I mean, for real, it's like, you can't even make this stuff up, dude. It's just so bizarre. Like, you would need the world's best author to be able to craft a narrative this just delusional. Quote, we have a different policy than I think Twitter has on this, and quote, Zuckerberg told, quote, the Daily Briefing, and quote, in an interview scheduled to air full on Thursday, quote, I believe strongly that Facebook shouldn't be the arbiter of truth of everything that people say online, he added. Private companies shouldn't be, especially these platform companies, shouldn't be in the position of doing that. Okay. I mean, really? Really, for real, seriously. We're in parallel universe. It's just an absolute parallel universe. So, I'm sorry, but why did they ban Ron Paul then? I mean, this doesn't make any sense. Zuckerberg made the comment after President Trump warned social media giants that the federal government could, quote, strongly regulate, end quote, or, quote, close them down, end quote, if they continue to, quote, silence conservative voices, end quote. So it comes out, he's saying this because he's seen the blowback. Not surprised. Quote, I have to understand what they actually would intend to do, end quote, Zuckerberg said in response to the president's warning, quote, but in general, I think government choosing to censor a platform because they were worried about censorship doesn't exactly strike me as the right reflex here, end quote. Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey, the fake hippie, responded late Wednesday saying, quote, we'll continue to point out incorrect and disputed information about elections globally, and we'll admit to and own any mistakes we make. You know, there's a really easy solution to this. There really is. You put a fact-checking section on every single post out there, and you just allow people to check it themselves. If you have a problem with that post, anybody should be able to fact-check the post. We're really supposed to be the ones that are supposed to be able to look through the information and determine what is true and what is not. And if we're unable to do that, then we have bigger problems than this. So what else do we got going on over here. Here's a tweet. Nancy Pelosi calling for impeachment. It's not part of this. I'm sorry. That wasn't supposed to be there. That was like supposed to be on another video. Apologize. I think that's it for this segment. Stick around. There's going to be more. The live stream's not over, but this segment is. So drop a comment down below. Don't forget to hit that like button, ring the bell, so you get notified whenever I go live. If you got any value out of this, consider sharing it on social media, because it is the #1 best way that you can help contribute to RSS commentary and help share the real news, debunking the fake news,